¿Cómo está? Gracias. Arriba. Follow the leader, follow the leader. All right, let's grab the tick-tock, dibby, you don't stop.
So the Wizard of Oz is this allegory, right, which is describing the
economic climate Wizard of Oz gravy.
The late
I like this guy. He's smart. I'm not gonna watch this whole thing though with you guys. You guys on the stream here, but that guy is very impressive. He teaches a lot about common law and regaining your sovereignty. Hey, Alicia. Discord woke you up. I'm glad to hear you were sleeping this late. Sleeping late. That's exciting. Although I'm not quite... Where are you? Are you in Florida or are you in Utah? I forget where you are. Or neither one of those places. So I don't even know what time it is where you are. Could be early in the morning. All right. All right. Take this sweater off. All right. Here we go. Let's go. It's 7:55 here. Yeah. Okay. Utah. Oh, I did remember. All right. Utah. Okay. All right. Let's grab TikTok, Homeschool, and the Guidestones. I may have gotten to the bottom of the Georgia Guidestones. I don't think it's nearly as conspiratorial as the truth community would like it to be. All right, Homeschool and Guidestones and Guidestones. All right, let's do this thing. I don't know how organized my thoughts are, but I pretty much got to the bottom of the Guidestones, so we'll talk a little bit about that. I figured it would be a good assignment for maybe middle school, higher level middle school, and high school students. So I was making all day yesterday a unit study on the Georgia Guidestones, and whenever I do academic work like that, I really like to cut out all of the hearsay, and I like to get as close to the primary documents and primary sources as I could get. Hey, Paige. And, it turns out the people that made the Guidestones wrote a manifesto, as it turns out. And being the weaponized autist that I tend to be, sure enough, I was able to track down said manifesto, and I read the entire thing. And, anyway, we'll get into that. It should be a good unit study, though, for the kids. All right. Good morning, TikTok. We are here in the rainy South where the grass is always greener, the birds are chirping, the trees look happy, and a cardinal is flying right in front of my face. It is an absolutely beautiful time to be alive. It's an absolutely beautiful day. It's probably the greatest time in human history to have children. So as they say, be fruitful and multiply, because the future is so bright. Turn off the news. Don't let these people scare you. That's all they want to do, because fear is their mechanism of control. But the truth of the matter is, we have very little to be afraid of, because the world is so abundant. The world is so prosperous. The world is so beautiful, and we get to share that world with our children, and that's part of what we're doing with our year-long nature unit study, and that's what we're going to talk about today, teaching your children through nature. And then after we discuss that, I'm going to jump into the Georgia Guidestones, because for those of you who know me, I am a weaponized autist, and it turns out there's a manifesto that was written by the people that created the monument, and sure enough, I was able to track down the 1981 document that most people don't know exists, and I was able to read their manifesto, And the really interesting part isn't so much like their mission and their purpose. Yeah, like we get it. You want there to not be a lot of people. You want to control reproduction, all that stuff. And that's all interesting. But what's really interesting is I found all of the logistics that went into the making of the monument, right? Like all of the people they had to hire, all of the contractors, right? Like all of this stuff had to be put together. Like just think about the scope of this project. I'm currently building a house, so I know what goes into that. And the scope of this project was much bigger than me building a house on a homestead, right? Like all of the people that had to be hired, the monumental expenses that went into the construction and the putting together of the Georgia Guidestones. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about teaching your children with nature and the year-long nature unit study. And, before I get into that, I just want to mention that the reason I dug so deep into the Guidestones, because I don't really care to dig so deep into these things at this point in my life, but I thought I could make a good unit study based around the Georgia Guidestones and their mystery for the members of Homeschools Connected. So I am currently putting together a unit study based on the Georgia Guidestones, except when I make a unit study, like historical based stuff, understand that I'm only doing it if I could get as close as possible to the primary documents, right? Like, what do we actually know, right? Because we know that this website says this and this website says that and all these conspiracies. But what is rooted in the primary sources? Where does all this information come from? And sure enough, I was able to find I don't know if we want to call it a pamphlet, a manifesto, the documentation, the mission of the people that actually built the Georgia Guidestones. It was published in 1981. The Guidestones came out in 1980. They were constructed in like 1979. And it is fascinating, just the pure expenses that would have had to have gone in to this project. They don't put the numbers on it, but just really quite remarkable stuff. So before we get into that, let's get into teaching children through nature, and then we'll get into teaching children through conspiracy and developing the habit in our children of cutting through all of the hearsay, of the he said, of the she said, of the CNN said, of Fox News said, of this conspiracy website said, of Alex Jones said, to what can we actually find getting back to primary documents. Because ultimately, when we teach our children to study history or mystery or anything like that, or science, right? If we're going to teach them to be critical thinkers, it's not about having them, hey, little Johnny, you need to memorize this. Hey, did you know that Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492? Oh, did he? Yeah, now you know. No, you don't know history, right? You know, you got to be able to cut through the garbage, cut through the hearsay, and get back to what is the primary documents? What were the people on the ground who actually involved in the project saying? And that's how you develop critical thinkers in your children. And with our year-long nature unit study, that is exactly what we've been doing. We've been developing critical thinking faculties within our children, getting them real-world experience. So far this year, the children have learned about maps and topography. They have mapped the properties where they live. They figured out which side of their property is north, which side of their property is south, east, west. They spent a day tracking the sun's location in the sky. Okay, at 12 noon, the sun is in the east, right? But by 2 o'clock, it's in the south. And by 4 o'clock, it's in the south. And by 5 o'clock, it's in the south. Oh, you know what? We better put our garden in the south. So then they chose the best garden location based on their property and the sun's location in the sky. They researched their planting zones, where you live, what crops can be planted, decided what crops they wanted to plant. They built little makeshift in-home greenhouses greenhouses right in their house. They planted seeds in the greenhouses, germinated their seeds, documented the process, developed their videography skills documenting that process, made short 1-minute videos. They took their seedlings and took them outside, but before they planted them in the ground, they constructed garden boxes. So they constructed garden boxes, they built their own garden boxes, so they learned the skills of construction, they planted their seeds in the ground, and on and on and on, hands-on learning in which our children are learning real things within the real world. It's how they're meant to learn. And then it just goes, we've had them make their own compost, we've had them plant their seeds in the ground, we've had them make their own fertilizer out of banana peels, make their own fertilizer out of eggs. We have had them plant flowers, attract bumblebees and ladybugs, make ladybug feeders. All this stuff we've had them do, make bee baths, hands-on learning. Because if you want your children to learn about the world, this is the type of stuff that you have to teach them. So that's what we're doing as part of our year-long nature unit study. And the last couple of weeks, the children have been learning about herbs. And many of the videos that I've posted on Cubs to Bears about how do you identify white clovers, right? And how can you take white clover flowers and make them into an herbal remedy, a tea? How can you identify dandelions and make those dandelions into a jelly? Right? Well, this week we are studying purple dead nettle. And the children will go outside and they'll look for purple dead nettle. Depending on where they live, they might be able to find it, they might not this time of year. But they're learning to identify purple dead nettle. We're going to have them make a pesto out of it. And what I'm really excited about is this week, not only are they learning about purple dead nettle, which is an herb that's found all over the place and it's very good for you, but the children will be studying, because when they do their research on purple dead nettle, they'll find that it's good for your kidneys, right? So that leads to the natural question, what do your kidneys do? So this week, for the first time in our nature unit study, we are going to start including some study into anatomy in the human body. And children are going to learn about the kidneys and what they do and their process and how they assist in filtering toxic waste out of our body, which ultimately leaves our body via urine, right? So they're learning about anatomy within the context of their nature unit study. Of course, I wrote the book, You Are What You Eat, right? So it's very much in line with everything that we preach, everything that we do. So, and this is the best way to learn. What zone do you live in? I live in zone 8. Zone 8, I believe. Thank you for teaching our children. God bless you, sending lots of positive energy. Yeah, well, I'm really excited to talk about the next thing I want to talk about here. And everything I do is about teaching the philosophy, the threefold philosophy that if you want your children to understand the world around them, and this is such a good topic. It's why the topic I'm about to talk about, why I've really dug into this over the last few days. Like, I did an unfathomable amount of reading last night and this morning. I think I've been reading for like 6 straight hours that I've been awake. And anyway, I think I got to there's so much more to get into, but relatively got to the bottom of the Georgia Guidestones and what's behind them. And if we want our children to really be educated, you have to do 3 things. And those 3 things are critical thinking, skill development, and entrepreneurial experience. Now, I'm about to get into the critical thinking aspects of that, right? Like, how do you use history because the Georgia Guidestones are history. Like, to me, it's, it wasn't really hard to cut through all the bullcrap because I'm a historian. I have a degree as a history teacher, right? This is what I have done most of my life. So, like, 6 hours of reading, and more or less I was able to cut through the nonsense of what are the Guidestones. Which, whatever. Like, I don't love doing that stuff anymore just because, like, when I first woke up to the world, I was like, I need to get to the bottom of everything. And after a while, you're just like, oh, so the world's really corrupt. There's a lot of crazy people. Some of those crazy people are in many positions of power. And so what, am I going to harp on it? No. What we do is the nature unit study. What we do is, I sold my house to get out of debt, started a homestead, grow my own food, homeschool my children, teach your children skills, right? Like, what planting zone are you in? How do you germinate a seed? How do you make compost? How do you make at-home fertilizer? All of these skills. How do you construct a garden box and develop your skills as a carpenter? How do you take those skills as a carpenter, get entrepreneurial experience so that you're not reliant on a corporation, right? So that you're not reliant on a corporation for employment. Because as we've seen in the last 2 years, 3 years, working for a corporation isn't the best option anymore because they could come along and say, you know what? I think you should get injected with this. And if you don't get injected, then we're not going to pay you anymore. Okay, well, right. You as a listener, right? Like, you might be comfortable with this round of that, right? What about the next round? Like, where does it stop? Where does it stop with these corporations having the power to tell your child? Imagine your child's 27 years old now. Your child has a wife. Your child has 2 young children. Maybe they have a mortgage, right? And they're working for this corporation. And now this corporation comes forward and says, oh, you want me to keep paying you? Well, yeah, right? So none of us want that for our children, whether you're comfortable with this round of crazy tyranny or not, right? So, and it is insane levels of tyranny, what we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years, but ultimately we choose it. We choose it, hey, Melissa, in how we structure our life, right? So we get it. We develop skills in children. One of the skills we're developing with the nature unit study is photography, right? Because I love photography as a skill for children because it's a great way to get them entrepreneurial experience. What do I mean by that? Take a 10-year-old. You teach them photography, have them take courses in photography. How do you get them entrepreneurial experience? Really easy. Around September, October, you approach them about a project-based learning, about them starting a business. And you tell them, listen, I'm going to guide you. You're going to learn great skills, and you're going to make some money doing this. And they start making flyers, doing preparation. They put flyers on the neighbors' doors. And, basically they offer to do people's Christmas photos. Great. The neighbors, you call the neighbors on the side. Hey, little Matthew is really into photography. If you're doing Christmas photos this year, please consider hiring Matthew. And of course, if one of my neighbors called me and said the 10-year-old is starting a photography business, even if I wasn't doing Christmas photos, I would say, absolutely, I'm going to hire him. And I would do Christmas photos, right? So you get them entrepreneurial experience. So, like, if you want your children to be free and not reliant on the government, not reliant on corporations, not reliant on even you as a parent, like, I don't want my children to be reliant on me forever. I mean, quite frankly, I want my children to crush so much that I'm like, man, let's just, I'm just going to retire. You're crushing, right? Because as I age, right, as I become 40, 50, 60 years old, if my children aren't in a position where I feel like they're perfectly capable of taking care of themselves financially and whatnot, I know myself. I will literally work to the bone to my death, right? To make sure that I help carry the weight that my family needs me to carry. That's just, right? That's part of being a parent. So yeah, I don't want my children to be relying on me, because I would like to, when I'm 60 years old, to be able to kind of kick back and, put my feet up. And maybe if one of my children are interested in, I would love to pass them Classical Learner and Homeschools Connected, and have them be the next generation of educators, if that's what they're interested in. But we only do that through critical thinking. We only do that through skill development, photography, art, videography, music, computer coding, construction, engineering, aesthetics, and through entrepreneurial experience, where they have a childhood. I think, in my opinion, you get your child some form of entrepreneurial experience every 6 months from the time they're 5 years old. So every school semester, that's part of their school, then they will have the experience and the mindset to do amazing things with entrepreneurialism throughout the course of their lifetime. So that's what we're teaching, that's what we're preaching, and that's what we're doing with our year-long nature unit study. So now I'm going to answer your questions, and then I'm going to talk about the Guidestones, because this stuff it really is fascinating. It really is fascinating. I hope I could organize it all like I said, I've been reading for about 6 straight hours, so I hope I could organize what I read in my mind. Before I do that, so if anyone is interested in what I do, right, in my business, classicallearner.com, Homeschools Connected, and it's $10 a month with the promo code FREEDOM, and you get access to all my courses I teach and everything I put together. So now that I did my shameless plug, I'm going to go back, read your comments, and then we're going to get into the Guidestones. And I'm not going to say I got to the full bottom of it, but more to the bottom of it than, 99% of what you've seen. I want your book. Is it available in Canada? Yeah, my books are available all over the world, and you can find them at www.classicallearner.com. Do they need a camera, or is a cell phone okay for the project? For photography? No, they can use a cell phone. You could do amazing things with cell phone photography in the year 2022. So yeah, I mean, listen, if your children, this is what I say about project-based learning mixed with unschooling. So in our nature unit study, one of the things our children are doing, they're learning some photography skills. So like they're learning like the basics, the rule of thirds. So if this is a photography grid, right, you want your the subject of your photo to touch one of the 4 corners in that center box I'm making. That's the rule of thirds. These are basic photography concepts, right? Like how to photograph a flower properly with the sunset in your background, or how to capture a sunset properly by using something up close in the front of your photography. So like if I wanted to capture a sunset, I could take this mason jar. It's beautiful, right? I got the green leaves in it. The straw, the yellow lemons, it pops. I could place this in a location, maybe on a table, and take the photograph from up close. So it would appear that this beautiful piece is the subject of the photo. But what talented photographers do is they'll place it so the sunset is the background. And so there's really 2 subjects of the photo. The up close, that gives contrast to your photo, and then the sunset in the background, right? So the children are learning that in our nature unit study. But here's where that's project-based learning. So how do you unschool? Let's say your child's doing the project-based learning, and they really love doing the photographs. Okay. Now you unschool. Oh yeah? I heard, that's great that you love the photographs. I heard that, oh God, what is the name of the curriculum? I heard that the Gather Round company has a whole curriculum on photography. Do you want to take it? Yeah, sure, that would be fun. That's an elective, right? You go to gatheround.com, you get their curriculum, and now you have a whole curriculum for unschooling based on the photography that your child wants to learn, right? And if they take to that, yeah, then okay, then let's go beyond a cell phone, right? Like, hey, my child loves photography. I'm going to get him a real, real camera now. And then we could take courses where they start to learn about shutter speed, right? And stuff like that because they're interested, right? So that's how you combine unschooling. That's how you combine unschooling with project-based learning, right? And that's the most powerful form of learning. And that's what I preach. That's what I teach. That's what the members of Homeschools Connected do. That's what we do. So, so yeah, if you take away anything from my streams, take away my philosophy, take away that we combine project-based learning with unschooling, that we focus on critical thinking, we focus on skill development, we focus on entrepreneurial experience, right? The philosophy. Because if you understand the philosophy, then you will achieve amazing things with your children, whether you're using a formal curriculum or not, right? So that's what I try to preach. That's what I try to teach. And then, of course, I try to teach how to teach critical thinking and all of these different aspects. And I teach courses on propaganda using the Cubs to Bears children book series. And I teach a course on the media industrial complex. And I teach a course on the Bill of Rights and the American Revolution. And we set forward a path to teach your children financial literacy. And in time, I'll have courses on that as well. So it's all just, we have to be more purposeful with how we teach our children, with the nonsense that's taking place in the public school system. And we can do that. And it's not that hard to do once you understand the philosophy that should drive what you're doing. And that's what I try to preach. That's what I try to teach parents to do. And that's what I hope you take from what I'm doing here. Do you have any curriculum on the Federalist Papers? So what I would do for the Federalist Papers is, one, that's a great way to learn because you want your children to learn through primary historical writings. So what I would do, I actually did a TikTok video on this once, is I would have my child read the Federalist Papers, and if they want to listen to it with an audiobook, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Like, they could read it manually or with an audiobook via Amazon KDP. Amazon Audible. I actually have the Federalist Papers audiobook on my phone. And then what you want to do is research or look up something called the Anti-Federalist Papers, right? Because you had the Federalist who, Alexander Hamilton and these guys who wanted to have a stronger federal government with more control. And they were very against the Articles of Confederation. We needed a stronger government. And then you had the anti-federalist who were more interested in keeping government smaller, right? And it was really the anti-federalist who were the driving force behind the Bill of Rights, right? Were the driving force behind the Bill of Rights, and the freedom of speech and everything that we hold so dear, right? So it's one thing to have our children read the Federalist Papers. The way you make them critical thinkers is you want them to read both sides of an argument, of a historical argument. So they read the Federalist Papers, then they read the Anti-Federalist Papers. They can make Venn diagrams of the differences and the similarities. They could write papers. They could do a fun video presentation where, like, you get them colonial wigs and they act out the characters and they like act out an argument between the two sides. Like there's so many fun learning things you can do, but you're developing critical thinkers because you're having them hear the arguments of people on both sides of the debate, and then they could start to formulate their own unique understanding and opinion on what occurred. So yeah, that's what I would do with the Federalist Papers. Thanks for being there, man. You inspire us. Thank you. Oh, the package. All right, I'm going to get the package. I will not. Hold on. You guys want to... Melissa sent me a package. You guys want to see me open it? I've been putting this off for like a week. And yes, I'm double phoning it. All right, let me get the package. I'm going to get the package. I'm going to finish answering your questions, and then we open the package, and then we talk about the Guidestones. God, nature is beautiful, isn't it? Hey, Lucy. All right. All right, here we go. Here we go. All the way. Got the package. All right. Hey, buddy. Got dogs for days. Dogs everywhere. All right. Let's get back over here. We're going to open the package. We're going to answer the questions. We're going to open the package. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. All the way. Okay. This is amazing. Thank you so much. To your above question, sugar, butter, flour, I don't do nonsense. You're one of the best teachers I've come across in my life. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. Because, you know, I'm an author, and I'm a business owner, and I'm a homesteader. But what I've realized, and with Homeschools Connected and teaching courses, is that at my root, I'm a teacher. Like, that's what I am. I'm a teacher. And I hope one day that when my time here on earth comes, when God calls me, that I can know that I lived my life in the shadows, in the same rarefied air of people like John Taylor Gatto, who came before me, who I really look up to. And I want to make, like, you know, I want Gatto to be proud of my work. And I want to leave the world a better place than you know, when I got here. So being a teacher, I think, is ultimately my calling, and that's what I'm going to do. All right, now, the moment we've all been waiting for. I love it. It's not hoarding if it's plants. This is why Nicole was so excited. She looked at all this stuff, but I didn't. And I'm really into, like, I love that you sent this because I've been, I'm at the garden centers all the time. So I see, like, all the little gnomes and stuff that people put in their, and like the statues and like stuff like this that people put in their garden. And like, I always see them. I'm like, oh, that would be awesome. But like, obviously I'm not going to spend money on it because I'm like, I can't spend money on it, you know? So this is really exciting. It's a great present. Gardening is so exciting, I wet my pants. Hopefully with a hose. Or Brady and Aubrey definitely, they take the hose and they like to chase me with it. This is going right in the greenhouse. Oh, I wet my plants. Yeah, I can't even read. I wet my plants. That's even funnier. Just going right in the greenhouse. Crush it. Oh, this is cool. So, these are so you know which plant is which. And look at this. They have little sayings on them. Me so thorny. Mojito in training. This is so cool. And this I saw. This I'm super excited about. Onions. Looks like Nicole opened that one. Corn. Cucumbers. Ooh, parsley. I was just thinking about parsley yesterday. I was being a snob. We went to a restaurant and I was eating something and I was like, there should be parsley on this. Kale. Love kale. Melissa, this is awesome. Love it. And you can never have enough seeds. Ever, ever. Especially with all the talk of like the food situation going on and like look how crazy they are with Agenda 2030. Like in the Netherlands right now, the government ordered their farmers to terminate their livestock. Like that's how they make a living. That's how they feed their country, right? Like that is some draconian you know what, right? And like the media doesn't want to cover that one. Like the Canada one I thought was curtailed and psyoped pretty quickly. The Netherlands one I think is pretty legit, and the media doesn't want to cover that because they're like, what? What's happening in the Netherlands? Yeah. Oh, part of their psychotic Agenda 2030, where they ordered all the farmers in their country to terminate their cows. That's psychotic. Right? That is draconian to like a level of which... Anyway, I digress. I know, I never have labels. I know, I'm the worst. I'm always like, I'll know which plant it is with my awesome plant identification skills. And then like 2 months later, I'm like, which one is this? I'm living the homestead dream through y'all. Well, you'll be homesteading soon enough. So what do you guys think? Should I cover the Guidestones today? Or should I do a separate stream on it another day? Because I do have a lot of work to do. Should I cover the Guidestones? I'll cover the Guidestones. I mean, I'm probably going to learn even more about them because I'm making it into a unit study. All right, so the Georgia Guidestones. It's first, just the quick background, like if people aren't familiar. So basically, in Elberton County, Georgia, there were this monument put up in 1980 called the Georgia Guidestones, and on the monument, this thing's gigantic. There's six granite pillars weighing a combined 237,000 pounds. 237,000 pounds of granite. Now, you want to get into the cost of these things, right? What is the cost of granite per pound, right? We're looking at, this project today, what it would cost, and just the materials alone, right? Just the granite alone, probably $100,000, right? Just the granite alone. So this was a pretty significant project. So you have these 6 stones, and on the stones are these engravings. And the engravings are in 8 modern languages, right? 8 modern languages, English, Chinese, Russian. I'm not going to be able to recite all 8, but they're written in 8 modern languages and 4 ancient languages. Now, think about the scope of this project alone. Think about the process of not only writing out what they wrote on it, but then getting that translated to 8 to 7 additional languages from English, and then 4 ancient languages, right? So the process of this, right? Everything that went into this. So then what is on the engravings? Well, this is where the mystery really comes from. And there's good reason for the mystery, because it's creepy as you know what. And that's why, it's so funny, because you get these mainstream, they're like, oh, these stupid conspiracy theorists, they think there's something nefarious behind the Guidestones. I don't care who made them. The fact that the Guidestones say that they want to have human population reduced to 500 million people, that's really creepy, because there's allegedly, I don't believe their numbers, but allegedly over 7 billion people on planet Earth right now, right? 7 billion people. So reducing that to 500 million is, pretty significant. And it says they want to reduce human population to 500 million. They want to control reproduction, right? So all of this stuff you're hearing is right in line with the message from, if you go back and read the historical writings of people like Margaret Sanger, right? They want to control reproduction. They want to, so really creepy stuff. They want to, one of the 10 commandments is they want a world court, that determines, that settles disputes between countries, right? So basically they want world government. When you're talking about a world court, they want world government, that personal rights should be balanced with social duties. So again, that's a reference to social justice, right? That they want to have a world with great diversity, right? All of these key terms that are very much in line with the globalist and all of the messaging that the globalist, they put out, right? The United Nations and all these groups put out. So you go online and you read about this stuff, and you could watch conspiracy videos for days about, who did this and what this means and whatnot. But I wanted to cut through what it actually was. So I started reading all of these articles, and ultimately what I did was I got names, right? I got names. And 2 of the important names that I got, well, really 3 of the important names that I came across were R.C. Christian, Joe Fenley, and Wyatt Martin, right? Because you'd have these articles, and they'd be like, and apparently the guy who purchased the Guidestone paid 3 times the price, and all of the documents were destroyed. I'm like, how do you know the documents were destroyed? Right? Okay, so that's a claim, right? These are claims. Claim. Can I verify any of these claims? So then I started doing internet searches for on the names of the people that were being mentioned. Yeah, I don't feel like getting into the whole... I've talked about my opinion on the whole thing that's happening in the Far East. Yeah, anyone, people are like, that guy's the devil, right? And you're like, okay, well, what is his justification for the invasion? And they can't name it. They're like, because he's Hitler. So you don't know. So, I mean, people they just believe things. So anyway, I got the names, and 3 names I came across were, hey, buddy. 3 names I came across were R.C. Christian, Joe Fendley of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, and Wyatt Martin, a banker. So, through tracking the names, I was ultimately able to find a 50-page 1981 publication published by none other than Joe Fendley. Now remember, the Georgia Guidestones went up in 1980. In 1981, Joe Fendley and the Elberton Granite Finishing Company published the role they played published a 50-page document on the role they played in the creation of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company. Here's your primary document. Here is your first-hand testimony as to what occurred. Now, I don't know what to call the document, because quite frankly, from reading the document, although it's the first-hand account of Joe Fendley and the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, the way it's structured, it's very clearly the manifesto of the individual or the organization that had the Georgia Guidestones built. It is unquestionable. You read it; it's unquestionably their manifesto. It's their reasoning behind building it, their purpose, and they have everything in here in this document. So, Joe Fendley of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company. So now that you know where it's coming from, now let's tell a story. So, 1979, Joe Fendley is in his Elberton County, Georgia business, the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, and he's doing his thing. It's a normal business day, and a well-dressed individual walks into his store and starts asking questions. And the man introduces himself as R.C. Christian, and he's well-dressed, he's well-spoken, and R.C. Christian, which we later find out is a pseudonym, tells him that he's very interested in this project. And the project is much bigger than anything Joe Fendley had ever done. And Joe Fendley, the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, was a relatively big company for the area they were in, and he'd never done a project like this in its scope, So in Joe Fendley's mind, he's like, okay, guy, well, if we're going to go forward with this project, I'm going to need proof of funds, right? You're going to have to show me you could pay for this project. So R.C. Christian tells him no problem, and R.C. Christian goes to the bank, and Wyatt Martin is the banker who would be in charge of this case. Now, my first thought when I started reading this was, there's no way that this project was done by a bank loan, right? You have to have critical thinking faculties. There's no way this wasn't a bank loan, okay? This was cash, and they had the money. And I'll explain why. So, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Did he go in there for a loan? No, he was the escrow banker. So they had an escrow banker, Wyatt Martin, who was the intermediary of the fund transfer between R.C. Christian and Joe Fendley, because the money had to be put in escrow and contracts had to be drawn up, because this was going to be a massively expensive project, right? Massively expensive project. So Wyatt Martin's the escrow banker. He's the intermediary, which handled the money transfer between the man who identifies himself as R.C. Christian and Joe Fendley. Now, because Wyatt was the escrow banker, he said, I can't put through this deal under your pseudonym. So you understand that. So R.C. Christian, under a non-disclosure agreement, is the gives Wyatt Martin his real name. So Wyatt Martin, the escrow banker, is the only one who knows the legal name of R.C. Christian, the pseudonym of the man behind this. Now, R.C. Christian claimed to be representative of a group of people, what he said was a small group of people who were considered themselves loyal Americans and Christians, which is why he says he chose the name R.C. Christian, right? So these are the three main players in this operation. Now, so Wyatt Martin handles the escrow, and they start the project. Now, understand that for this project, I'm just going off memory here, but for this project, they seemingly would have had to have had an architect, right? Because this statue, you're talking about 237,000 pounds of granite being carefully placed together on top of each other so that it doesn't collapse, right? Presumably, you would have had to have an architect, right? Presumably, you would have had to deal with coding, right, and zoning. They needed a place to put it, so there had to be real estate agents involved, and ultimately, they wound up purchasing 5 acres of land in Elberton County, Georgia. Now, the land was well researched because the exact location of the Georgia Guidestones is the highest point in Elberton County, Georgia. Right? Yes, I've heard of the 144,000. So they had to research the land, get an architect to make sure that the structure could stand. They had to clear the land, prepare the land. These are all things they had to hire people to do. They wound up hiring a full-time job project manager who oversaw the job. They had to get the 10 Commandments, if that's what we're going to call them, transcribed. Who transcribed the 10 Commandments into 7 other additional languages and 4 ancient languages? Like, this is not easy stuff to do. Well, it turns out it was a group of people that they hired to do the translations, including, you ready for this? The United Nations assisted in the translation of the Georgia Guidestones to the 4 ancient languages. So they had to have enough money and resources and clout and connections to have the United Nations assist in the translations. And then when you see the language and the 10 Commandments lower the population to 500,000, control reproduction. Hold on, look, my signal's out a little bit. Hold on, my internet signal looks like it's out for a second. There you go, it's back. All right. Lower the population to 500 million, not that, 500 million. Control reproduction or manage reproduction smartly, right? Set up a world government, have independent individual rights balanced with social duties, right? And then you see the United Nations was actually, now we have documented through first-hand accounts, through primary documentation, I mean kind of secondary, but still, through first-hand accounts, first-hand testimony, that the United Nations was involved in the translation of the Georgia Guidestones. Well, that's relevant. But, again, so we're talking about architects. We're talking about real estate agents. We're talking about buying 5 acres of land. We're talking about over $100,000 worth of granite. Then a full-time project manager, the translations. Full-time project manager, the translations. Now, the Guidestones are perfectly aligned with the North Star in the sky and with the, I'm not an expert on this, but they're lying. I don't want to get it wrong. With the solstice and the equinox and the sun's position in the sky. So in order to do that, they hired an astronomer. My pronunciation is failing me, but you guys know what I'm saying. Astronomer. So they hired him to assist to make sure that that was accurate. And understand, and they did it. They achieved it. Like, you can see the North Star through the Georgia Guidestones, at all times at night, right? So this isn't like a little project they hired him to do. They hired someone and they had to pay them a significant amount of money to do this project. So think about all of the people they had to hire to do this project. Then they got to get the land cleared. They have to hire construction crews, right? These are 240,000 pounds of granite, right? So they had to rent big equipment. They had the equipment come in. Yes, it's also a compass, a clock, and a calendar, and it functions. It will tell you, the Georgia Guidestones from the sun will tell you what day of the year it is, right? So, they had to rent the equipment. Understand that the cost of this project, I don't know exactly, is monumental, right? I mean, my rough estimate for the cost of this project was, in 1980, probably between $1 and $3 million, I would think. That's my guess. Between one. Oh, and then they had to hire. They hired the one of the most well-known, renowned, respected stone chiselers in the United States of America, because they had to chisel these 10 commandments into 12 separate languages, and there were over 4,000 letters. So they hired one of the most respected, I forget the proper term, stone chiselers or stonemasons in the United States of America to chisel 4,000 fine individual letters into this stone. How much do you think they had to pay him for this? How much do you think they had to pay this guy to, by hand, or whatever he used, but to chisel 4,000 letters into these stones? My estimate of $1 to $3 million is probably low. And this is in 1980, right? This project today, I would think, to do this project, by the way, if anyone wants to clip this entire talk and put it everywhere, please do, because this is straight gravy. So, like I said, I've been reading for 6 straight hours, researching, getting back to primary documents. So please, clip it, share it, whatever. So I'm estimating that the Georgia Guidestones to construct today would probably cost somewhere between $20 and $30 million. That's a very, layman, guesstimate. It's educated guess, but, I would think that you're talking about a $20 to $30 million operation adjusted for inflation today. So understand that whoever was behind this project had a lot of resources. And again, keep in mind, there's no way this project was getting approved and done, I don't think, with a bank loan. In fact, officially, Wyatt Martin in the documentation is listed as the intermediary, which suggests to me it wasn't a loan. And I think there would be documentation if there was a loan, public documentation. So they had these funds available in an account, right? And this money went into escrow, and it probably was an agreement whereas part of the money gets paid up front, part of the money gets paid during this portion of the project. There's no way you do this project, because if you're the Elberton Granite Finishing Company who published this document, there's no way you agree to do this project unless you know you're going to get the funds, right? That's suicide. Imagine you're buying all of this material and whatnot, and right, so they had the money, right? So this was, for today, this is someone coming to the bank with $20 to $30 million in an account and saying that I want to build a statue. And by the way, if you're spending $25 million building a statue, how much money do you have, right? Because if you or I won the lotto tomorrow, right, and we won the lotto tomorrow and we had $30 million, I could tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend every penny I have on a $30 million statue. That's not what I would do. It's probably not what you would do. So whoever had this built, presumably that was a small portion of their net worth. Or whatever group had this built, presumably the Guidestones were a small portion of their net worth. A small portion of their net worth. So this was a monumental project, and this was completed by people with funds. Like I said, this is a $20 to $30 million project today. So if someone was going to have this built today, I would guess, I mean, I don't know, they're passionate about it. I can't imagine someone would spend more than a third of their income on this, right? So if they're spending $30 million on this, I'm guessing they had, adjusted for inflation, over $90 million, right? What are they hiding in the time capsule? I think I know what they're hiding in the time capsule. I think I know. So, all right, so understand the massive scope of this project. So this guy, R.C. Christian, he walked into the Elberton Granite Finishing Company and he said he wanted this project done. And Wyatt Martin, the banker, knows his real name. So Christian says he represents a small group. He represents a small group. And he doesn't give their names. He doesn't give their real names. But what he tells Joe Fenley is that he's traveled the world. Apparently, he's been all over Europe. Like, this is a man of great means. This is of great means. He's been all over the world. He's been all over Europe. And he's particularly fond of Stonehenge. And what he specifically liked about Stonehenge is that the mystery surrounding it made it immortal. It stood the test of time throughout the entire world. This is what the guy's beliefs are. This is what the guy says, right? I know people will say, Stonehenge is fake, blah, blah, blah. Either way, at least from this testimony, this is what R.C. Christian believed, right? So he really loves Stonehenge and the mystery behind it. And his idea in the creation of, or whoever's idea it was, in the creation of the Georgia Guidestones was to create the modern version of Stonehenge so that this would stand the test of time. They wanted this to be around for thousands of years. And interestingly enough, in the document, and this is the testimony of this group, in the document they say, if someone who doesn't understand our message destroys the Guidestones, we ask that they be rebuilt. They put that in the document. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? So R.C. Christian represents this group, and it's a manifesto. So it talks all about their 10 key points, their 10 pillars. And like with the reducing population to 500 million, they're very into like the Cold War and the potential of nuclear holocaust, right? And like a catastrophic event. Like they made the Guidestones because they wanted them to survive a post-apocalyptic event, right? And then they say that, hold on, there's a mosquito. Nah, you got to go. You're not going to survive a post-apocalyptic event. Get away from me. Yeah. How did you get into my fortress of solitude, my gazebo? I'm going to get you. And you're probably going to get me first, but I'm going to tag you last. I'm going to tag you last, mosquito. All right, so, so the Guidestones, so they're very obsessed with like nuclear fallout, and they want the stones to survive the test of time in a post-apocalyptic era. And what this guy, R.C. Christian, apparently testified to, because again, I'm pretty sure this is his manifesto, or this group's manifesto, when you read it, is that the Guidestones were good, but they don't give humanity guidance for the future. So the guidance they wanted to give for the future was that humanity, in their opinion, is a cancer on planet Earth. And humanity is depleting the natural resources of planet Earth. They're really obsessed with New Age scientism, these people. It's interesting because they call themselves Christians, but they're really obsessed with New Age scientism. And that humanity is harming the climate and destroying the Earth and depleting it of all its natural resources. And because of that there's already people, this is in 1979, 1981, the document. So, that there's already people starving in the world. And it's all like New Age science beliefs. It's the type of thing that comes straight out of the United Nations, right? This type of belief system. Now, of course, they're wrong, right? They're like, I mean, if they were actually Christians, they would know that God provided enough abundance, right? If you're a Christian and believe this stuff, like, then you believe that God provided enough abundance for all of the people on earth. And then when you understand why there's starving people in the world, it's not because of lack of food, it's because of modern colonialism and the stripping of natural resources by mega corporations and governments in the West of third world countries. And if they were really interested in feeding people in third world countries, there would be efforts to assist them in their farming, and specifically there would also be efforts in the improving of infrastructure, because there is enough food in the world. They're just not able to get it from point A to point B, or they don't want to, right? So when they pull on your heartstrings and say there's starving people in the world, it's because they want there to be. That's what they do. That's what all these NGOs do, right? When they make shoes and give free shoes to a village in Africa, they're like, these poor people can't make their own shoes. No, the people in Africa are very smart. They can make their own shoes, but you undercut their businesses when you give them free Nikes. So now they can't make any money making shoes, so they stop making shoes, right? So all of these NGOs, I mean, not all of them, there's some good ones, but this is how the world really functions. And the psychopaths behind the Georgia Guidestones, they fundamentally misunderstood how the world actually operates. So they wanted to create this monument, this United Nations style monument, whoever these people were, R.C. Christian and his small group of people he represents. They wanted to create a United Nation, they wanted to create a Stonehenge type monument that withstood the test of time and that would be here for thousands of years. And then underneath the monument, they made it clear that there is a time capsule. And this is where it's truly brilliant. And I'm pretty sure I know what's in the time capsule. The guys who did this were very intelligent. They're very intelligent. They studied historical art and how the mystery behind Stonehenge made it timeless. It made it two things. It's brilliant. Timeless and priceless. And the truth of the matter is that what they accomplished with the Georgia Guidestones, because of the mystery, it's timeless and it's priceless. It's truly brilliant. I mean, in terms of making art that cost $30 million, but the art actually, like, it was a great investment, actually greatly exceeds the value of it that it cost to put together, they did it. I mean, the Georgia Guidestones are truly timeless and they're truly priceless. Now, the message behind them might be satanic and rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of the world and the religion of science, right? Right? You know, the religion of science, you want to get into the history of that one of those words you're not allowed to mention, but the thing that Margaret Sanger was really interested in, that's all the religion of science, right? The religion of science is the most psychopathic religion in the history of humanity, and it's not even close. Like, it's so, again, they called themselves Christians, but when you read their writings and their beliefs, yeah, that's the word. Jesse Bellis said it. That's all rooted in science, this crazy stuff that they, what they're trying to do in the world. So the religion of science is just beyond the pale because it's religion absent of God's morality. And when you have religion absent of morality, morality becomes, it becomes, we've decided that humanity is a cancer and we need to right that. I mean, it's this is what these people believe, right? The religion of science is the most dangerous religion in the history of humanity, as seen by the Georgia Guidestones. By the way, can I stop and pause and reflect that this is a fundamental evisceration of the New World Order and of scientism? Evisceration. So, all right, so they made this monument very cleverly. Very cleverly. And yes, Jessie Bell is right about that. She's absolutely right about that. So, don't never deny what is true. It absolutely is based on that. Yes. Yeah, I gotta be careful how I talk about this stuff. So, I mean, it's gotten beyond that, but it's rooted in that. I mean, it's not what they care. Maybe. It still might be. It gets into questionable areas. I'll get into that another day. But, so these were highly intelligent. This was well thought out. They made a $30 million monument that, in terms of art is probably worth $5 billion, right? I mean, this is a brilliant operation. It's timeless. It's priceless. It's assuming, right, it wouldn't be destroyed. Assuming it wouldn't be destroyed would stand the test of time, and 1,000 years from now, they'd be like, what is this? This is so interesting, right? Like, people would study this and be like, what were these monuments, right? It's brilliant. It really is brilliant. And it was done by this man who used a pseudonym and didn't want people to know his name, and this group who is not to be named. They thought all this through. So, presumably in their minds, the time capsule would be unearthed sometime in the future. Maybe 1,000 years from now, people would, that's why they write on there's a time capsule underneath this. Did you know there's a time capsule? It's written on the Guidestones. Presumably, they figured 1,000, 2,000 years from now, someone will dig up the time capsule. The time capsule. And you know what I think is on the time capsule? It is the most brilliant artistic signature in the history of humanity. The name of the man behind the Georgia Guidestones and the name of their organization. I guarantee it. This is some high-level narcissistic stuff. It is brilliant, and I guarantee you that the time capsule has the name of the man who put it together and the name of the organization. What do you guys think? Now, I did do more research, and apparently there's a documentary out which claims to know the identity of R.C. Christian. The identity of R.C. Christian. So, in 1986, there were about 100 copies of a book published called Common Sense Renewed. And the reason that's relevant is the document that I talked about makes a lot of references to a return to the Age of Reason. An Age of Reason is a reference to Thomas Paine, his book Common Sense, and the Enlightenment thinkers. So, Common Sense renewed, which, by the way, this is also an evisceration of the Enlightenment itself, because the Enlightenment, at least factions of it, are rooted in scientism and getting away from Christian moral beliefs. But the ultimate end result of scientism is, you know what, aside of humanity. It's amazing. The whole thing is so amazing how it comes full circle. So apparently there was this book. It is a book. About 100 copies were published, called Common Sense Renewed, and it was published. I mean, it was written by the author. Ready for it? R.C. Christian. See? R.C. Christian, the man who had the Guidestones put up. So my question then became, okay, that's interesting. So you're saying there's this book by R.C. Christian called Common Sense Renewed, which falls right in alignment with the Age of Reason talk in the document that I talked about. But, critical thinker, anyone could have taken the name R.C. Christian and used that as a pseudonym, wrote the book Common Sense Renewed, and kind of hijacked, right? Because, I mean, it's clever. Anyone could have done that, right? And it's very intriguing. So my question is, how do we know R.C. Christian is the same R.C. Christian? Now, the people that made this documentary, when talking to the banker, remember we talked about the banker Wyatt Martin? Apparently, what they claim is that they got their hands on one of the letters he received from R.C. Christian, and the banker didn't realize there was an address on the letter. And they tracked the address of R.C. Christian and came up with the name Herbert Kirsten. Herbert Kirsten was a doctor in Iowa. And so they're saying that Herbert Kirsten was the person behind, he was R.C. Christian and behind the Georgia Guidestones. And they're saying that Herbert Kirsten then published the book Common Sense Renewed under the same pseudonym R.C. Christian, and he did so with the assistance of this guy, Merriman. But I haven't seen any proof that Merriman assisted this R.C. Christian in publishing the books. So I don't know if it's true or not. Now, if you could connect with documentation, with evidence, Merriman to this doctor, Herbert Kirsten, then I would say he probably is the R.C. Christian who is behind the construction of the monument. But I don't know that because I haven't seen any actual connections, right? That's just, they're just like, oh, this book was published by Kirsten under the pseudonym R.C. Christian, and he had the help of the Merriman Publishing, whatever. And like that's a nice claim. Again, it could be true, but until you actually show me how you made the connections, it's just more hearsay. So that's what we know. This is the creation of the Georgia Guidestone. And then Kirsten himself had connections to the Rosicrucians, a secret society. And then you're like, oh, so the name R.C. Christian, Rosicrucians, R.C., right? R.C., Rosicrucian Christian. Very intriguing, but I don't know for sure. So, you know, if someone wanted to take the research further, if they could actually show with documentation, with the first-hand testimonies, connect Merriman with Herbert Kirsten, who's alleged to be R.C. Christian, well then maybe you can put it together. I don't know that. What I know is I got back to the document that I just described, published by Joe Fenley and the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, and he was the one that put up the Guidestones, and this guy, R.C. Christian, whoever he was either the driving force behind it or the representative, I would guess a representative of a group that had it put together, and they had to have immense resources to have this project completed. Who they are, I don't know. You know, their beliefs, I could tell you about those. They're rooted in New Age, psychopathic scientism, like the inevitable path of the Enlightenment. So, like, it's ironic because there are a lot of good aspects of the Enlightenment, but the faction of the Enlightenment that advocated for the separation, the getting away from Christian morality or just morality in general, ultimately led down a path of scientism, and scientism ultimately, inevitably, if you follow the logical steps, will lead to you-know-what aside. And that is everything you see going on in the world today. And this talk, go back, Gunter, go back and watch this. In fact, I'm hoping someone could clip from when I started talking about the Georgia Guidestones and put this talk, if someone wanted to make an awesome thumbnail, put this talk together and post this all over the internet, because I believe in humility. I don't believe in false humility. This is one of the best talks on the Georgia Guidestones, on critical thinking, on scientism, on the Enlightenment that you will find on the internet. And if someone could get that out there, clip this from today, the talk of the Guidestones, make a really good thumbnail, post it to all the different websites if they want to clip it, and then send it to me, and I could post it, because this is some straight gravy. So then what I'm doing with this is I am taking my research into the Georgia Guidestone, and I have been making it into a unit study, which will be done this week, and this will be a unit study and a hands-on lesson on critical thinking for high school age students, which will really teach them how to think about the world, how to do research, how to get to primary documents, and how to think critically about the world around them. So this is a unit study that all members of Homeschools Connected will get access to, and I'm really excited about it. I think if this works out, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking my TikToks, at least some of them, and making them into unit studies for the children, so that they could, learn this stuff, learn critical thinking, and I think it would be a really cool thing. When you end the live, save the stream and can download it. I do have clips. Awesome. So I will, this will repost itself on YouTube tomorrow. So the whole thing will repost. And if you need anything more than that, I could also download the TikTok copy of the stream, which is probably a better straight-on talk. So you can have that as well. I'll download the stream later today, and I'll repost the entire stream to YouTube, or I'll just send you the raw file of it, because I could download the raw file from TikTok. All right, I'm going to go back and read some comments now, and then we're going to call it a day. I haven't done any of my videos yet this morning because I was researching the Guidestones, and I was making the unit study, so I have so much work I have to do today, but I think it's worth it because I wanted to make this into a unit study. So I'll make it into a unit study. The children will have it, and I think it's a unique and awesome way to teach children something like a really interesting historical thing. Like the Georgia Guidestones are a really interesting historical thing. I in absolutely no way support their destruction. I don't think that type of thing is productive, but it did bring up interest in them, and so this is really interesting stuff. By the way, anyone interested in the document, it will be included in the Homeschools Connected Unit Study. So I lived in Georgia, 95 to '05, and they talked about the stones in high school. Yeah, I mean, it is a big deal. It's you know, it was a very carefully crafted project. There's a lot of mystery behind it. Wonder the symbolism of RC. Again, it's, you know, speculated that that could mean Rosicrucians. And if you could get back to Herbert Kirsten, like if you could really make the connection, not just the hearsay, then maybe. But if we're just going off people that made a documentary claim to have seen this guy's address, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch the documentary this weekend because let's be honest, I'm neck deep in this now. So Freemasons, interestingly enough, so I forgot to mention that Joe Fenley, the president of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, who also published the document, is a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Additionally, two of the contractors who worked on the Guidestones were also 32nd degree Scottish Rite Freemasons. Realtors, architects, and project managers are bound to confidentiality via contracts. This man needs to be protected. He's so true. Yeah, I don't think anyone's coming for me. They like, when they try to smear me, it's like they say, like they just make up lies about me and like try to smear my name. They're like, you know, they're pricks. But I don't think anyone's physically coming for me. Of course, the UN. Yeah, the UN did some of the translations into the ancient languages. Which again, you know, it could be nefarious in that the United Nations were like somehow a part of it, or it could just be these guys just had, whoever did this had a lot of money and they were able to pay people to do it, you know, so it's, right? I mean, if you needed something translated into like hieroglyphics, you could probably find a good person at the UN to do that. You know, like, one of the things we want to train our children to do is to get away from, like, it's fun to speculate. Like, I speculate, and, like, you know, that's great and all. Like, it is fun. But when you really study stuff, you want to get away from the speculation. Like, oh, I could have been them. Like, you want to be like, okay, what do I know? And then, in your mind, separate what you know from the logical conclusion of what that might lead to, right? Deductions, inductions. And you can make your educated guesses, and they could be accurate, but you always want to have a delineation line in your mind of, this is what I really know, and then my educated guess based on that is this, right? And you want to have that in your mind, and you want to train your children to have that in their mind. Why do they need to open the capsule now? They're not opening the capsule. They're not going to open the capsule. My real intrigue is if it will be rebuilt. And my guess is it will be, but we'll see. I mean, if the guy who was behind it, or the group, especially the guy behind it is still alive, but it's 40 years, they'd definitely be rebuilt. I'm pretty sure that this was this guy's and group's way of going for immortality by being remembered thousands of years from now. I would bet that it's the name of the guy who did it in the group on the time capsule. No, they didn't blow it up. They didn't blow this up. I don't believe they blew it up. They blew it up. This was someone, or just part of like someone's agenda, but not the people who built it. Like, there's lots of people with agendas. Like, it could have been destroyed by an organization who was like maybe trying to make truthers look crazy or unhinged, make truthers look like terrorists, like that type of thing. But the people that built it, I don't think they. No, I don't. I think they wanted this to last for thousands of years. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a fund and a trust account somewhere sitting aside for just this occasion. They even wrote in the document, they wrote, if someone who doesn't understand the message behind this destroys the monument, we hope that it is rebuilt in the future. Based on their funds they had to have and how much they put into this, I'm guessing there's a trust account somewhere, and its destruction will activate some type of... Anyway, I don't want to get too into it. Like, I have other thoughts that I'm going to keep to myself, because I don't like to get into the territory of putting myself at risk. But I would guess that there are funds for this. I'm going to digress at that. And people behind it, I have no interest in... I mean, I do have interest, but I am not going to pursue who you really are. Do you, bro. Do you. I'm not pursuing who you are. I just was reading your primary documentation as part of a schooling thing so that I could teach children the proper way to study history and get back to documents. So don't worry, I'm not going to do a full-fledged investigation and try to figure out who you are. I'm past that. I'm past those truther days. So leave me alone. I'm out. I'm just a homesteader in the hills who likes the right to bear arms too much, okay? I'm out. Not interested. I'm not. I know how you people get down, so I'm not interested. But RC Christian, I figured you out. All right. Yeah, I don't do stuff like this. When I was a younger man, I engaged in some dangerous types of investigations, and I was also very good at getting to the bottom of those. And I've learned in my old age that some mysteries are best left mysteries, because it won't really benefit my life or anyone else to, figure out, Anyway. Let me just check something. Okay, good. I have 5 kids, and I don't think you want their commentary in the background. That's so funny. Built 322. There are several Skull and Bones members involved. Yeah, there's also some symbolism which could suggest organizations like Skull and Bones. Like I said, in the document, they openly admit that 32nd degree Freemasons were involved in its construction. I mean, they admit that, right? So, again, like I said, the document, I'm pretty certain it's like almost undoubtedly their manifesto when you read it, and so it is what it is. Do we have tips on how to make the first day of homeschool special and memorable? That's a great question. I've never thought about that. That's a phenomenal question. What do you guys think? What does the chat think about making the first day of homeschool special and memorable? I'll get through the comments and then I'll give my thoughts on that. I did an outside class on the first day and he loved it. Mini school, party, and make it a big deal. That's awesome. You guys are such crushers. I'm going to make a TikTok out of that. Screenshot that. That is a great idea. Pajama day, screenshot. Brilliant. I have the best community. It will be interesting to see who rebuilds it. Yeah, and there will be a lot of publicity around it, so that will be very interesting. My kid wanted to go fishing, and I told him I would at 5 a.m. By the way, for anyone interested in what I do, www.classicallearner.com. Homeschool's connected, and if you use the discount code FREEDOM, it is $10 a month, and I think you'll really enjoy it. All lowercase, FREEDOM. It may be a revenue hoax. I don't think it's a hoax. I think a lot of thought went into it. Like I said, I mean, it's brilliant. It really is brilliant. They took a piece of art and they figured out how to make it timeless and priceless and to spread their message. And I guarantee you to remember their name. I mean, it's very impressive. Yeah, I think I'm safe. I don't think I'm causing enough chaos. Savannah sits on the 33rd degree line. For those of you not familiar to Tifgog's reference, 33 is a Freemasonic number because allegedly the highest rank in Freemasonry is a 33rd degree Mason. You know, that's what they say. I don't consider myself the foremost expert on Freemasonry, on the Rosicrucians, on the Skull and Bones. Like, I dabbled in that stuff. I'm not the highest expert in that. So, is that true? Is it not? That's what they say. That's what the Masons say. We're doing a back to school day with a fellow homeschooler in our church. These are phenomenal TikTok video ideas. You guys are crushing. You're like my writer's room. You're an idea factory. Thank you. A tea party and a Bible study. Wait, not every homeschool day is pajama day? So maybe maybe instead of doing pajama day, you can do dress up day and you could get the little guy dressed up in a suit. That'd be cool. My son was reading his kid's Bible to a 13-year-old who had never seen the Bible before. That's amazing. Destroy the stones so that we focus. Destroy the stones so we focus on that and not what the government is doing next. Yeah, maybe. I just again would like to state for the record, and I really like to state this for the record, I never ever advocate for any violence, any violent protest. I am adamantly against it. I am against the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones. I don't think that was appropriate. Just because, authoritative bodies out there, just because I find it interesting, right, and just because I bash the Guidestones themselves, does not mean I support their destruction, right? And I like to make that abundantly clear. Can you get into masonry initiation? You know, maybe I'll wind up doing research on that, and I'll make unit studies on the Masons for the homeschool community. But right now, I wouldn't even feel confident enough in my knowledge of the Masons to make videos. I would have to do a substantial amount of research before I even spoke on it. But they're interesting. I mean, I know more than the average person, don't get me wrong, but, I'm not an expert on Freemasonry. Actually, there are videos I want to do on Freemasonry that are in my wheelhouse. Like, don't come to me and be like, hey, Brett, give me the down low on the Masonry. I'm like, I don't know. And this talk has been really great because it's really let me get into the aspects of critical thinking and breaking down documents and analysis of things that I don't usually get to do. And one of the most powerful parts of being an educated person is to recognize you're not educated. And that's even when you think you know everything, right? Like, oh yeah, I know. You only know until you find more information. Then you realize you didn't know. And like, I have no problem saying, I'm not the foremost expert on Freemasonry. I have no problem admitting I'm wrong. I did a TikTok on Roe v. Wade, and I talked about how Roe made up that she claimed that she had been gang raped by people with stuff that's opposite of this, right? That was her claim. That was the case, right? And turns out later that was a lie. She's a liar. But she atoned for her sin by becoming a born-again Christian and spending the rest of her life coming out against abortion. Well, as it turns out, now apparently there's a documentary in which they're claiming they have film of her. I haven't seen this, but they're claiming they have film of her before she died, saying that she only pushed the Christian stuff because she was paid to. So it turns out she might have been a liar the whole time, not just at the beginning. But I don't know. I don't know for sure. Like, I'd like to watch that documentary and see if it's true or not. But if she did that, like, I have no problem coming out and saying I was wrong. Like, people are like, oh, I'm never wrong. Like, if you think you're never wrong, you're probably always wrong. Right? Like, we have to be able to admit we're wrong about things, learn from them, analyze what we got wrong, what we missed, and how to become more critical in our thinking faculties. And this is what I preach, and this is what I try to teach, and this is what I'm trying to do with everyone's children in teaching them to be critical thinkers. That's what Homeschool Connected's all about. That's what it's all about. And that's why I really love the idea of starting to make unit studies based around the TikTok videos that I make for multiple reasons. For one, teaching the critical thinking faculties, teaching children about how the world really operates, like, what are all these groups? What do they do? How do they function? And ancillarily, people are very interested in my TikToks, and it's a phenomenal marketing tool for me. Like, people who love my gravy on the Georgia Guidestones will naturally want their children to learn about my lessons, my unit studies on the Georgia Guidestones. So, like, that's a very nice benefit for me. So this is how I make a living, by the way. And I never would apologize about that. You know, people will be like, oh, so you're charging $10 a month? This is how I feed my family. Yes, I'm making a living. Like, this is my business. I couldn't operate without people funding what I do. I spend probably 10 hours a day doing Homeschools Connected. Like, you know? So, as I always tell people, support what you like or it goes away. Like, I support lots of people. I support Owen Benjamin. I support, I give Owen Benjamin, I think, $20 a month. I give Pat Life $5 a month. I give Tom Burnett $5 a month. I give Crow 7777 Radio $8 a month. And, you know, I don't know. Let's just say Crow might have on a very interesting guest in the next couple of weeks. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. And it may be kind of like a dream come true for that guest. So, you know, well, you know, I don't want to make any announcements, but, you know, we'll see what happens. So when I see an article that uses 33, it's a red flag propaganda. You know, it could just be a 33. I mean, it could be. Right? You'll get like the same thing, like, you know, people will be like, oh, the video has 666 views. Well, like, if it's going to get to 667, at one point it has to have 666. So, you know, how do you distinguish between what's a signature of the Masons and what's not? You know, you got to use your discernment. Not everything with a 33 means Freemasonry, right? But anyway, you guys get it. All right, and then I got to cut this stream because I don't want to lose this recording. I don't know how it was destroyed. I'm guessing the narratives coming out are already nonsense. No, everyone finds everyone finds Freemasonry interesting. They're a cult. The very nature of, they're not a secret society, but the very nature of a society with secrets is interesting. And then when you get into the history, like that's kind of what I want to make videos on. Just like, you know, George Washington in his primary writings talked about the Masons and the Illuminati, right? Like, people are like, the Illuminati exist? You're so stupid. Like, I could literally show you George Washington writing about them. Like, I'm the stupid one? Okay. Just signed up. I've been looking for guidance on homeschooling. Thank you. Very happy to have you, and I'll inbox you sometime this week, and we'll get you started. Reasons living in an apartment is better than a house. No, I'm not familiar with that. All right, guys. I'm gonna kill this stream before. I'm gonna stop the stream before I lose it because I want to keep the recordings. So it's been lots of fun. www.classicallearner.com. Homeschools Connected. Use the discount code FREEDOM, all lowercase, if you want to join. And I live stream every day at 9:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. And I'll be back Monday. Freedom isn't free. We have to earn it every day. And I will undoubtedly be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern to earn my freedom. And I'll get the talk on the Georgia Guidestones clipped, and I'll post just that segment because I think we really got to the bottom of at least what's verifiable about the stones, and at the very least, I just find that stuff to be extremely interesting. So I'm now going to count to 10 in my head because it's on a delay, and I am going to casually drink the wonderful, refreshing mint and lemon water that I prepared for myself. It's been a fun stream. This is one of our best streams. I really had fun this one.